Hello guys, welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving on to today's first story. So this story starts over 3 years ago. My girlfriend, Quinn, and I had just moved in with my brother Mac and his boyfriend Bugs after we had a fallout with my trash can of a mother who we had been trying to help out. It had put us in a bad spot, having lost our vehicle and quit our factory jobs to move down there, but Mac had been able to get us hired on at the factory he worked at. Not more than a couple weeks after having moved in with Mac and Bugs, Mac told us the electricity was going to be shut off and that he needed help. It was over $2,000 and we sacrificed most of our tax returns to help them catch up on bills. The house was a disaster and a lot of work had to be put into it. Once my friend Napa moved in, it was like a toned-down season of Shameless, but we managed to make it work for a while until Mac switched jobs and got a letter from the electric company that he had broken a payment deal with them that they would be shutting electricity off. It was over $2,000 again, we couldn't pay it. My girlfriend decided the best bet was to ask her father, who will be called Dante, if we could move in with him. Dante was a real piece of work. He had taken all of my girlfriend's paychecks when she has been living with them and forced her to take care of her younger brothers, clean the house, and get perfect grades in school, while her older brother Acid Boy got to do whatever the hell he wanted, namely acid. Dante had even drained her bank account before kicking her out at the ripe age of 16, so my parents let her move in with us. My dad was sympathetic as he had a rough childhood as well. That being said, Dante was still a far shot better than her mother. Still, he would constantly get drunk and abuse his kids. He was in rough shape. Throughout his life he had taken a shotgun shot to the back, broken his neck, broken his lower back, shattered his knee, and had taken a further neck injury while at work. He was on multiple heavy pain meds and drank multiple liters of Captain a week. It was a wonder he was alive at all. The combination of medications like oxy and morphine with alcohol should have been far more than enough to kill him, and it wasn't uncommon for him to get drunk and accidentally take a double dose of meds, but it somehow never backfired on him. Dante, having just broken things off with their stepmom, was struggling to keep up with bills. Despite all his issues, he worked full-time at a factory, but couldn't make ends meet without selling medication. This was probably the only reason he allowed us to move in at all. We agreed to pay all of his bills aside from cable, as we didn't use it. He wound up canceling that shortly thereafter when we got the internet set up and gave him our Hulu information. To our surprise, when we moved in, he even took down his Confederate flag in respect to Napa, who was black, and Mac and Bugs, who were transsexual. We thought it would be a good sign that he was better now that he had left their stepmom and sobered up. We were wrong. Nearly 2 months after having moved in, everything had been going fine. He worked mornings and we all worked nights and had very little interaction with each other. I bought food for barbecues on the weekend and we got along fine when we did talk. He was having issues with seizures at this point as well, likely from withdrawal, and hearing him crash to the ground was a constant source of dramatic nights. This ended when he decided to have a woman move in with him, who we will call Crack Lady. Crack Lady was her official nickname between us for obvious reasons. She lived in the low-income apartments and she mooched off of Dante, cheating on her husband with him and leaving him to take care of the kids. Don't feel sorry for him though, her husband abused the kids and was a drug addict as well. When she moved in, she became the constant source of drama and we suspected she was whispering in his ear to get him to start fights with us. Dante began to drink again, and multiple times a month he would start screaming at everyone through the floorboards. We all ignored him and ignored her as best we could. Crack Lady would constantly try to steal from us and mooch us, but we all told her to get. She said she would have Dante make us, and we all figured she was full of shit. We thought it would be inconceivable that he would pick her over the people paying all of his bills, but he did. The screaming got worse until it reached a high point when Napa's brother came to visit one night. He was playing games with Napa and Dante's younger son, who he had gotten custody of recently when Dante's kid struck a deal with Napa's brother. He traded a piece of the freshly made pizza from downstairs for a Hot Pocket, and went on his way. Dante found out and came upstairs to talk shit. Napa's brother had already been warned at this point that he was an asshole, but Dante seemed to be in the mood for banter when he started to talk shit about him fleecing his son. Napa's brother responded with something along the lines of having made a good deal with the imp, and Dante flipped a switch. He got a can of gasoline and threatened to light Nappa and his brother on fire for disrespecting him in his own house. Nappa pulled out nunchucks and Dante threatened to shove them up his bum if he used them. We broke it up and convinced Dante to go back downstairs. Nappa and his brother for the night, and that was that for a while, until my girlfriend's brother showed up a couple of months later from Oklahoma. He was moving in as well. Not but a couple of dates after he did, Dante decided to get drunk and revved his truck, waking up the whole block and getting the police called on him. Crack lady went in and out of the house as he was picking fights with the cops, and he was promptly arrested. On a Saturday, during a blizzard, he wouldn't be out until that Monday. Knowing how bad he was without his medication, and had shown everyone her crack pipe that he had found in the basement earlier that week, along with a pile of stolen makeup and Tide Pods, of all things. The older brother lost his shit, and we had to restrain him from kicking the absolute shit out of her there, and then. He kicked her out of the house, telling her to never come back. We took the pipes and put them away in our safe. When Dante came back, he was informed and silently nodded his agreement. That lasted all of 2 weeks. He welcomed the crack lady back into the house and immediately got drunk and screamed at their older brother, calling him racial slurs and trying to start a fight with him. Afterward, he brought up that a cat had gotten out when he was arrested and that it was probably dead. It was found later, under the porch, very much alive and fat, but he was screaming about how we were cat killers for the rest of the night. Normally, nothing he does phases me. I have a high tolerance for bullshit, and every other time he started shit he acted like nothing had happened the next day. This time, I could see how much it affected my girlfriend, and I went downstairs to return fire. It had taken several moments after I started bellowing at him for him to register what the fuck was happening. He had never so much as heard me raise my voice and was aware of how non-confrontational I was. He came storming out of his room to try and fight me, but the older son split us up and manhandled him back into his room while my roommates drugged me upstairs. Nothing happened afterwards, and the older son moved back down to Oklahoma 2 days later. This had been the breaking point for everyone else as well. Mac moved a couple of states away after breaking it off with Bugs, who was his toxic can of worms. Bugs was picked up by his mom and moved back to his home state, and Nappa moved a few hours away with his mom. Conveniently, my grandma was moving out of her trailer at the same time, and we were going to buy it from her. We informed Dante about it and that we would be leaving in a couple of months. He was pissed. He knew he was going to have to start paying his bills again, and he tried to convince us to stay. He told us he would move in with his friend in Texas and we could have the house. He only needed $5,000 to get him on his way. We told him to get us CKED. We had just gotten home from work in the middle of a blizzard at nearly midnight when he asked. He was already drunk, so immediately started his usual routine when we went upstairs. He screamed about how he was going to burn the house down if we didn't leave now, and we ignored him. Figuring he was going to try and make us out as the bad guys, I decided to put my phone in the hallway to record audio so he couldn't deny what he was doing. We ignored him from there on out until we started to smell smoke. My girlfriend bolted out of the room and saw that he had lit the stairs on fire. It was admittedly a small fire, but the house was old and the stairway was the only exit from upstairs. She was able to put it out, and I stayed in the room armed with my sword in case he came up. We called the cops. He was arrested for arson. We had the option to press charges for attempted murder but decided not to. The state would already be pressing the arson charges, and we didn't want to be the nail in his coffin. We wanted to make sure he knew it was his fault. We had the option to press charges against the crack lady too. Unfortunately, it was a blizzard and it was pretty obvious he didn't. They found him hiding in the basement. We took pity on her and played devil's advocate on her behalf, as we had heard her try to make him back off at one point in the recording. We did, however, give the cops her pipes. Nothing happened with that as far as we know. We gave the cops the recording we just happened to have, and they informed us we couldn't kick her out. Still, we took pity on her and gave her money for groceries until her mom came to pick her up. We left that week, helping my grandma move out and into her new house, and things were pretty silent for a few months after that. We enjoyed it at our new trailer, and we moved on. It was nice to have my girlfriend's family cut out of her life, and her mental state improved until those 3 months had passed. I was leaving to go to work one day. The shift had started 2 hours ago, but I was under the impression that we wouldn't be running. A co-worker had died recently of a brain aneurysm, and it had been her funeral that day. We were supposed to have the day off so we could attend her funeral, But they decided that because the funeral was early in the day, they could have the second shift run without informing me. I was probably 2 hours late at that point. I walked out the door with my lunch, and who else would I see driving through the trailer park but Dante and the crack lady. We had a restraining order at that point. State issued it, so I called the cops and called into work as my girlfriend was hysterical. Cops showed up, and we found out they failed to inform us that he had liquidated his 401k and made bail. To add insult to injury, he decided to move into a trailer with a friend who happened to live 5 trailers down, and he wasn't in violation of the restraining order. So enough was enough. Dante was already in the news. We sent the recording to his friend, but he ignored us and took Dante's side. Instead, we decided to go to our landlord and explain the situation. He gave them 1 week to kick them out or he would evict everyone there. They didn't, and he fulfilled his promise. All of them were evicted. I'm not sure of all the details, but it was a massive blow to that family as they lost everything. Dante had to find somewhere to live again, and crack lady was arrested for being with him. Part of some deal that kept her out of jail and let her keep custody of her daughter. Both of those deals were revoked and her daughter was taken by the state. Since Dante had decided to try and start shit by loving nearby, I convinced my girlfriend to not let him get by on whatever the state was pressing against him. He had gotten a plea deal but denied it, and my girlfriend rejected his attempt to get a second. She went on trial against him and agreed to make him take a much harsher plea deal which wouldn't allow him to walk free. He was ultimately convicted. Ahol has been sentenced to 1 year in jail, followed by 5 years in prison. He will also have to pay a total of $1,065 in fines. He pleaded guilty to the threat of arson and reckless use of fire or explosives. Now, here is the end of our first story, and I hope you guys are enjoying my content. So before moving to the next story, you guys can share your thought in the comments section about this story, in which OP took revenge on a horrible father. Also hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay tuned with us for more satisfying revenge stories. Now, moving to our final story. Backstory: when I was about 9 to 10 years old, my parents got a separation, later a divorce, where my dad forced my mom to sell my childhood home. And my mom got main custody with my dad having us. They had me and my 4 years younger sister over every other weekend plus every other holiday. He moved out only to immediately move in with the step monster and her 3 kids. The youngest was 2 years younger than me and a boy, the middle was a year older than me and female, and I'm not sure about the oldest age, but she was also female. I never interacted much with her. In an ideal world, we 4 kids would have gotten along great, played together and whatnot, or at least ignored the existence of the others. Sadly, it's not an ideal world, and that didn't happen. My sister got along with them just fine, I didn't. Maybe it was my then still undiagnosed Asperger's syndrome. Maybe it was me not instantly going yay, new family. But the step-siblings didn't like me. They started bullying me, and my little sister joined in, because she adored her new step-family and she was just 7 at the time. Over the first 6 months, the bullying got worse and worse, until I broke and tried to call home and get picked up. At this point, my dad decided to start confiscating my phone as the first thing he did when picking us up. The bullying escalated even more. There was nothing I could do. The step monster defended her precious demon spawn, calling me a liar and saying things like my kids said they didn't, whatever they did or said to hurt me that day, or she's just lying for attention. During the next year, I would try to run away from my dad's place a few more times to go to family. They lived less than 40 minutes walk away from an aunt, and about 1.5 hours from my grandparents. Then my dad and the step monster moved over 2 hours by car away from where my mom lived. Things got so bad that I dreaded going to see my dad. Sitting at every dinner, the only time I would see my dad at that point between pick-up and drop-off, listening to my dad calling my mom a fat greedy pig, and other evil things hurt. At 12-13, I was suicidal and numb, since I would only see the step monster, mostly when she told me to get the heck out and play or something, just get out of the house. I tried telling her that I wanted to die, that I didn't want to keep living like this anymore. Her response: I don't care, get the duck outside already. If you're going to kill yourself, do it outside. Not long after that, I had a meltdown at school, crying for hours and unleashing the whole nasty tale onto them. Since my school was a good one, the teacher contacted CPS, who talked with me, ran some tests, and sent me to a psychologist. At some point, they contacted my dad with their concerns for my mental and emotional well-being. My dad dealt with it by calling me, saying since you feel the need to lie like that, you shouldn't come to visit anymore. Stay with your mom, I don't care. That was my last conversation with him, although I heard a lot about him and the step monster from my sister. Now, for my revenge. 10 years or so later I get a phone call from my dad's sister about his passing, a car accident, and funeral. I went and I met the step monster again, obviously, widowed now, and my half-brother for the first time. During the funeral and following wake, she proceeds to insult me, my mom, and the rest of dad's family. Then she starts complaining about how his name is on everything they had together and how is she going to keep the house, it was paid down but taxes and whatnot, now, and such thing. Which is where my revenge comes to play. See, in my country, the children of the deceased have a right to claim a minimum of $115,000 each, if there is that much money or value in goods left behind and there is no will stating otherwise. Normally this claim comes after the deceased spouse also dies or when they try to sell the property worth the money, whichever comes first. Normally legally the children can claim it at any time. They just don't cause decency and pity for the widow. Too bad, I hate her guts and both the youngest step-siblings. As it so happens, my dad and the step monster owned some award-winning show dogs, a house and land, and a car. The step monster also got some insurance money plus, she will get a sum of about 60% of what my dad would earn if he was still alive every month. If my dad had a will, she could have kept all of that for herself or my half-brother. He didn't, and by that time my sister also hated her guts. So I talked to her and did the only thing I could think of, we took her to court to claim our inheritance. Sure, we got many looks of disgust and mutters of greediness, but in the end, we won and I got my share of the money. My sister got hers and our half-brother got him, locked in a trust fund for when he turns 18. This meant that the house, dogs, and car had to be sold. The insurance money also got split, so us kids each got around $115,000 each in a trust fund for my half-brother. As for the step monster, she got around $1,000 in a monthly sum of around $3,700. She was livid, started screaming venomous shit, saying I should have killed myself when I was considering. And how is she going to live now? She has no house, and how dare you to force me to sell Grimer, obviously fake name for my half-brother's childhood home, and calling me a witch and other such things. The judge had to threaten her with contempt of court and get her escorted out before she stopped. Now, here comes to the end of our today's video, and I hope you enjoyed this revenge video. In my opinion, watching karma serve those who deserve it, and smashing hard holes is incredibly satisfying. Guys, I want to hear your thought about this story in the comments section. Also, before you leave, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to remain updated on more fantastic stories.